Old Seattle, now just Sector 7A of the Western Time Zone, stood like a carcass in the mist. What was once a thriving metropolis had become a relic. Its steel skeletons rusting under a silver sky and choked by creeping vines of neon-lit decay. The air smelled of ozone, old rain and rust. Drones buzzed in the distance like flies around a dying beast. Eli Raines moved through the wreckage like a shadow. Cloaked in tattered synth fibre and a hood patched with solar mesh, he kept his face low and his eyes scanning. Not just for danger, for opportunity. Time was tight, too tight. 12 hours and 13 minutes. That's what the implant on his wrist glowed in red, a digital countdown embedded in his skin. His lifeline, his noose. Time wasn't just ticking, it was bleeding. The world changed after the great chrono collapse of 2146. Some said it started with an experiment, an accident in the Hadron Rift Labs in Geneva, where physicists toyed with a particle called T0, a theoretical construct that could distort temporal flow. But the truth had been buried beneath layers of corporate secrets and sealed vaults. What the public knew was simple. Time fractured, chrono loops erupted across the planet. Clocks stopped, started, reversed. Entire cities experienced weeks in a matter of seconds, or seconds stretched into days. In the chaos that followed, governments fell. Chaos bred order, and in stepped the Time Authority. A coalition of megacorps that turned the disaster into an industry. They stabilized time, claimed they had repaired the fracture, and in return they charged for it. Time units, too, were implanted at birth. You used them to live, to move, to speak. Every breath cost you. People no longer aged in years. They aged in hours, minutes, seconds. When your countdown hit 0, your body shut down. The authority called it temporal cessation, most called it death. Eli ducked into a half-collapsed shopping plaza, boots crunching over glass and charred plastic. A drone zipped past overhead. He froze. His implant dimmed to passive mode and his breathing slowed. The drone scanned, beeped once, then veered off. He let out a long breath and pushed deeper into the ruins. His hand rested on the grip of his chrono-hacked pulse pistol, a modified Enforcer Series 9, illegal as hell, but every scavenger had won. The message had brought him here. A whisper on the black line, Old Seattle, the girl, she knows. It was signed only. He didn't know what he expected to find. Probably nothing. Probably a trap. But if it was real, if someone had found a way to hack the system, to extend time without paying for it, he had to know. Because Eli was out. He'd sold everything. Stolen, smuggled. Hacked repos and scrapped authority tech. And now he was down to hours, not days. Not even a full half. Just hours. And death was punctual. He found her near a broken heliboard in the centre of the plaza. She was young, no more than 15, with short black hair and mismatched clothes that looked like they'd been sewn from 3 different decades. Her boots were scavenger grade, utility belt tight with tools. She stood beneath the glowing remnants of an old digital billboard, where flickering letters looped endlessly in broken blue light. Don't waste your time. She turned her head as Eli approached, not startled, expecting him. You're late, she said. He stopped. I didn't realize I had an appointment. She smirked and turned back to the sign. You do. Everyone does. It's just that most people ignore it. He took a step closer, hands visible, weapon holstered. You sent the message? I know. She paused. But I left the trail. Eli studied her. No implant glow on her wrist. No authority scanner tags. Not even a basic ID flicker. You're off-grid, he said, almost to himself. How? I was never on it, she said. Impossible. She looked at him, eyes sharp like obsidian. So's breaking time. Until it's not. They moved into the lower ruins together. The girl, she introduced herself simply as Nova, led him through half-submerged metro tunnels and forgotten stations, all layered with mould and dripping with decades of neglect. You used to be a timekeeper, Nova said after a long silence. Eli stopped walking. How do you know that? He read your record before it was wiped. That record was locked behind 5 layers of authority encryption. I know, she said, and kept walking. Eli followed, warily. Timekeepers were elite once. Engineers, agents, and enforcers trained to protect the flow of regulated time. He'd served for 9 years before he went rogue. Before he saw what the authority really did. The erasures. The experiments. The cost of controlling time. You lost someone, she said softly. Eli's jaw tightened. Yeah, her name had been Mira. Ela's sister. She'd been only 19 when the authority repossessed her time for unauthorized augmentation. She tried to add hours to her terminally ill mother's countdown. They erased her. Instant cessation. Not even a second of warning. 1 minute she was breathing, laughing. The next she was just gone. Eli never forgave them. Nova led him to a chamber carved deep beneath the city. An old transit control center, long abandoned, now converted into a hidden lab. Screens blinked to life as she approached. Power surged from old solar batteries and buried coils. In the center of the room sat a device. A smooth, black disc the size of a dinner plate, suspended in midair by 3 glowing rings. Its surface rippled like water, though it was solid as stone. Eli stepped toward it, heart hammering. "What is it?" he asked. "The reason they can't kill me," Nova replied. "And maybe the reason we can kill them." Eli stared at the artifact. He had seen classified records, ancient tech found during deep core excavation, devices not made by any known civilization. Some said it was alien, Thalian. Others said it was built by the first pre-collapse technomancers, the ones who predicted the chrono break. Nova touched the disc and it shimmered beneath her fingers. "It's called a ChronoKey," she said. "It taps into the raw temporal stream, not the units, the source." Eli stepped back. "That's a myth." Nova smiled. AISto's a girl born outside the system. Eli stood in the makeshift lab, every instinct on high alert. This wasn't just dangerous tech. It was impossible. The authority had spent decades silencing anyone who even whispered about off-the-grid time. To see it here, floating inches above a metal pedestal in a forgotten undercity, it shook him more than he wanted to admit. Nova, meanwhile, tapped something on a handheld console. Symbols flashed on the screen, old code, pre-collapse, mixed with modern encryption patterns and strings of data that didn't even look human. "You're sure this thing works?" Eli asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Nova didn't look up. "I've used it, twice." "To do what?" "Oh, once to escape a temporal sweep. Once to rewind 3 seconds. Just 3. She glanced at him. Long enough to avoid a sniper's bullet. Eli ran a hand over his stubble. "You rewound your own time. Not just memory, everything." She paused. "But it cost me. The burn was bad. I lost 3 days in recovery." He exhaled, slow. If what she was saying was true, this wasn't just a time access key. It was a temporal control node. Tech like that wasn't just illegal, it was world-breaking. "And no one should have this kind of power," he muttered. She met his eyes. "I tell that to the Time Authority." They sat across from each other on crates as night crept in. Or maybe it was morning. Time didn't mean much in the ruins anymore. Eli tapped his implant. 10 hours left. A little more, if he slowed his metabolic rate. He could stretch it, but not far. "You said this thing connects to raw time," he said finally. "How?" Nova hesitated, as if deciding how much to trust him. Then she slid open a compartment in the side of the pedestal. Inside was a pulsing core, a crystallized structure that seemed to shimmer with light and shadow at the same time. "It's not man-made," she said. He blinked. "You're saying it's alien?" "And not necessarily, just not from now." Nova stood. "Time isn't linear. We think it is because we're trapped inside it, but imagine looking down at a road from above. The past, the present, the future, they're all there. All happening. This device?" she gestured. It was dropped, from somewhere, or someone else. Eli stared at the core. "You're serious?" "I was born off-grid, Eli." "You think that just happens?" "Or at least part of it." Her mother had been a chrono engineer for the authority. One of the original architects behind the 2 distribution systems. A genius who'd grown disillusioned. Before she disappeared, she stole a fragment of time itself, raw, unshaped, still humming with possibility. She used it to mask Nova's implant signature before she was born, hid her from the system. "Every authority drone that scans me," Nova said. "They see nothing. I'm not just invisible, I'm impossible." Eli was stunned. A girl without a timer, a rebel's daughter carrying a living paradox inside her. "If the authority found her, they'll erase me," she said, reading his thought, "and not shut me down." Erase. Past, present, future. Gone. He nodded slowly. "So why take the risk? Why contact me?" Nova walked over to a cluttered console and pulled up a schematic. It looked like a space station, circular high orbit with spires extending like antennae into the atmosphere. "This is Central Sync," she said. "It's how they maintain the illusion of control. All 2 implants, all scans, all payments, they pass through this." Eli already knew that. Every Timekeeper did. It was their holy ground. I have a virus, Nova said. A program written in proto-temporal code. I can't upload it from down here. But if we can get to sync, just long enough to plug it in, we can break the loop. What does the virus do? It unhooks people from the ledger, makes every implant act like mine. He felt like the air had been punched out of his lungs. You're talking about freedom. A real time, she said. A time that can't be bought, stolen or sold. Yours to live, yours to waste. Eli's hand drifted toward his wrist again. 9 hours left. So what do you need me for? Nova locked eyes with him. You've been there before. You know the entry points. You were trained to protect it, which means you know how to break it. He hesitated. Why now? Nova shrugged. Because it's collapsing. I've seen the projections. The authorities' bleeding time. They're covering it up, but it's bad. Soon, there won't be enough to keep the system running. They'll purge billions just to stay afloat. You think we can stop that? They think we can choose how it ends. They spent the next 2 hours running simulations. Nova's plan was borderline insane. Infiltrate the sync orbital, avoid detection long enough to install the virus into the mainframe, then extract before the place fell into lockdown. She had a stolen authority clearance chip and an old shuttle ID tag hard-coded into a spoofed signal emitter. All she lacked was someone who could fly it, bypass internal security, and override the node protocols once inside. Eli, he sat back, running a hand through his hair. This is suicide. Yeah, she said. But better than dying in 12 hours. He smirked despite himself. A 10 now. Nova picked something up from a nearby shelf and tossed it to him. A small, round capsule. Smooth black shell. No markings. If things go wrong, she said, swallow that. He frowned. What is it? A jump pill. One-time use. Encodes your consciousness in quantum state memory and sends it 3 hours back into your own time stream. That's not possible. It wasn't. He held the pill between 2 fingers. How do I know it'll work? You don't. Nova's voice was calm. But if it does, maybe next time you'll fly faster. At dawn. At least, according to the system clocks above. Eli and Nova emerged from the tunnel network and headed toward the surface platform where the shuttle was hidden. The clouds above were thick and bruised purple, churning with chemical storms. The authorities' weather matrix hadn't worked properly in years. It reflected their control. Fragile, glitching, full of patches and lies. Once we do this, Eli said as they crossed the ruins, we're targets. No reset, no second chance. Nova turned to him face calm. You were a dead man walking anyway. Might as well make your last breath count. He nodded. Then let's not waste our time. They reached the shuttle just as the first wave of authority drones scanned the area. Nova ducked into the cockpit and activated the stealth canopy. Eli watched the drones pass, oblivious. For now, as they launched toward orbit, Eli felt the weight of everything pressing against him. Gravity, exhaustion, fear. But beneath it all, something else. Hope. Raw and unfamiliar. The kind he hadn't felt since before Mira died. Since before the world told him time was a debt he'd never repay. And maybe, just maybe, that was about to change. From orbit, the Earth was a bruised marble, blackened oceans swirling with corrosion, land masses stitched together by glowing grids of authority zones. Somewhere beneath that haze lay cities Eli had walked, friends he'd lost, and memories he no longer had the time to mourn. Time, his time, ticked louder with every breath. 8 hours, 37 minutes. The red glow on his wrist pulsed like a heartbeat he no longer controlled. A final approach to sync, Nova said, breaking the silence. Eli pulled himself from the cockpit's edge and stared through the shuttle window. There it was, central sync. A massive orbital structure, half satellite, half temple, rotating in lazy silence above the planet. Dozens of arms extended from its ringed center like a spiked halo, each tipped with receivers and chrono-modulation spires. Authority logos glowed faintly along its hull, next to serial codes and encrypted patterns that shimmered like static. It was beautiful, terrifying, and very much alive. "I look smaller than I remember," Eli muttered. "You were probably larger," Nova quipped, her eyes scanning hollow screens. Eli smirked, but it faded fast. "What's the ingress plan?" Nova pointed to a docking schematic. "Service Base 6, supposed to be off-network for maintenance, but I've back-channeled a signal. We'll get 10, maybe 15 minutes of invisibility before the system flags us." And if it flags us early? Nova pulled out her pulse knife and ignited the blade. It hissed like a whisper of death. We improvise. The shuttle latched with a hiss and a clank. Gravity recalibrated, atmosphere equalized. The hatch opened with a slow exhale, and the stale recycled air of central sink hit them like a tomb's breath. Eli stepped through first, pistol drawn but lowered. Nova followed, carrying the virus drive, a palm-sized device shaped like a shard of glass. Every step inside the station echoed louder than the last. It was too quiet. This place used to hum, Eli whispered. I remember noise. Lights, movement. Nova nodded. It's dying. They've started pulling personnel. Draining time cores, reallocating everything to the prime zone, so me guess. Rich get richer. Everyone else gets erased. They moved swiftly through maintenance corridors, ducking behind stacks of servers and timing arrays. Eli's memory guided them through halls that hadn't changed in a decade. The deeper they went, the more he saw the cracks. Flickering lights. Redundant systems rebooting endlessly. Temporal sync engines that coughed instead of purred. The whole station was sick. They reached the core access chamber, a vast cylindrical room with a central column of glass and metal, pulsating with raw energy. This was the node. The place where all time was processed, balanced, traded, and taxed. From here, the world's countdowns were calculated. It's beautiful, Nova whispered. Eli swallowed hard. It's a prison. Nova stepped forward and opened a side panel. She inserted the virus shard, and the interface lit up. Lines of code began to scroll. Glyphs Eli didn't recognize. Symbols from languages that might not even exist yet. How long? He asked. 3 minutes. 3 minutes until everyone's free. She shook her head. 3 minutes until the system starts fighting back. And that's exactly when the alarms sounded. They came from above. Authority guards, clad in temporal armor, black suits layered with shimmering chrono-reactive plating that made them look like walking time warps. Their implants glowed blue, not red. Elite units, enforcers. Step away from the node, one barked. And now, Eli didn't hesitate. He fired first, 3 shots, dead center. The enforcer's armor rippled, absorbed the blasts, and sent them flying back in jagged time echoes that exploded into the wall behind them. Nova ducked as one enforcer launched a stun burst at her. It passed through where she'd been 2 seconds ago. She'd already moved. Her movements weren't just fast. They were wrong. Her body flickered slightly, like she was half a frame ahead of the moment. I've got temporal shielding, she shouted. I can hold them off. Just buy me a minute. Eli nodded, pulled out his secondary pulse knife and charged. The fight wasn't fair. Not by any standard. The enforcers were faster, stronger, armed with authority sanctioned tech Eli hadn't seen in years. But they weren't smarter. And they didn't have Nova. Eli used every dirty trick in the book. Glitch grenades, flash fractures, pressure steam bursts. He bought seconds, and then Nova turned those seconds into power. The ChronoKey pulsed from her belt. And then silence. A strange stillness swept the chamber. The virus was in. Upload complete, Nova gasped, eyes wide. It's working. All over the station, alarms stopped. Lights dimmed. The floor trembled. A Nova! She turned toward Eli. We broke it. The system's collapsing, but not crashing. It's releasing. He looked down at his wrist. His countdown was still red, still ticking. 7 hours, 59 minutes. Nothing changed. Why isn't it stopping? Nova blinked. It will. The ledger's recalibrating. There's too many to process at once. Then sudden light burst through the ceiling. Not from above, but from outside. From space. From the future. Eli stared as something massive descended outside the glass chamber wall. Not a ship. Not a drone, a structure made of light and geometry. Intersecting patterns and impossibly folded architecture, it shimmered as if it was slipping in and out of reality. Nova gasped. They found us. Who? She stepped back from the interface, trembling. They call themselves the Curators. They don't exist in time the way we do. They preserve timelines, keep them pure. They don't interfere unless someone does what we just did. What? Freeze people? No. Alters fate, a voice echoed, not through speakers but directly into Eli's mind. This branch cannot be allowed. The light shifted. Reality bent. Nova screamed and fell to her knees, her implant flaring wildly. Eli pulled her back, shouting, What's happening? They're trying to rewrite this moment. They're collapsing the change we made. Can you stop it? No, Nova whispered, clutching the ChronoKey. But you can. She pressed the black capsule into his hand. The jump pill. Take it. Now, what? You can go back. Just a few hours. But you'll remember everything. You'll know. You can do it better. Be faster. Save more. Eli looked down at the pill, the same one she gave him earlier. The one she told him was their backup. I can't leave you. You have to. Nova touched his wrist. Don't waste your time. Make it count. He didn't want to, but he did. He swallowed the pill, and the world shattered. Light, pain, a scream made of thunder and water. Then Eli sat up. He was in the shuttle, descending, Nova beside him. Everything looked the same, until he looked at his wrist. 10 hours, 37 minutes, he gasped. It worked. Nova turned to him, confused. You okay? He stared at her. You don't remember, she frowned. Remember? Eli exhaled, long and slow. He remembered everything. The fight, the virus, her sacrifice, and now he had another chance. One more shot to do it right. He reached for her hand. We're changing the world today, he said. Nova blinked, then smiled faintly. You always talk like that. He smiled back, just when it matters, and this time he wouldn't waste a single second.